A lot of people will ask me, you know, why are you doing a farm? Why do you have a farm? And well, the truth to that is I love the lifestyle. I love the animals. I love growing my own food. And to be honest with you, this farm was built in 1840, and walking around here every day, I really feel like the builders are here with me sometimes. And I know that sounds a little strange, but it's just how I feel. When people want to start a farm is do you connect with the house? You know, I bought this old house and I knew it was a wreck. I knew there was going to be a lot of work involved, and I sat down in the old parlor, and I had felt a little discouraged about buying the house. I knew it was just going to be a money pit, and the land was wore out. There was nothing here for infrastructure, and I was just really discouraged. I don't know how to tell you. It's just I just was really discouraged. But I sat down in the parlor of this old house, and then I got a feeling that came over me, and I just had a you know, in my mind, I could feel the house calling to me. If you don't look at that place and say, geez, we have something in common, I think we can work together, you got the wrong place. There's a lot to be desired in terms of conveniences and modern equipment, and this farm didn't even have electricity up here until 1968. You know, and so there's a lot to be said about raising your own food. You know where your food comes from, and I think raising your own food really makes you respect the animals, and I really do love them. And when it's time to send them, you know, to freezer camp, we call it, it's tough. When you raise livestock, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a, you know, 7 to 3:30. It's 24 hours a day. So the animals don't necessarily care what time you feed them, but you try to feed them the same time every day. And if you have cows you're milking, you milk them the same time every day. They're a creature of habit. They like routines. So to be a farmer, you have to, it's kind of as another oxymoron, you have to be able to do a routine, which means take care of your animals the same way at the same time every day. But you also have to be ready for the unexpected, because shit's going to happen or crap's going to happen, and then you're going to be like, crap, I got to go put my cows in. And so, you know, there's been many times I've been tucked in for the night, ready to go to sleep, and then I hear my cows, because they have bells, I hear them out on the front lawn, so I have to go get a flashlight and shoo them back in. Or you know, the neighbor calls you and says your cows are down the road, and I don't care how good of a fencer you are, you're still going to get cows out. So I guess my point is that if you think you're just going to come here and have a nice little farm and, you know, put some animals out in the pasture to look at and not put a lot of input in it, you'll maybe pick the wrong profession. So anyway, it's not a 9-to-5 job, and you have to be ready for a routine of doing your stuff at the same time every day. But the stuff you might plan for the day might not happen because you got cows out. So you're going to go change the oil in your tractor, and now you spend half the day traipsing down the road, looking in the woods, beating bushes, trying to get your animals back in. So that whole, you know, the whole plan you had for the day, maybe going to the beach or taking your wife out to supper, just got flushed down the toilet because you've been out chasing cows, and now you smell like crap and you're tired. So, you know, it's not for the faint of heart. You're going to learn to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, probably. I have some old tractors here, like this old Farmall Cub that I cut my hay with, and it's reliable. I've gone all through it, and I know I go out there and turn the key, it's going to start. But invariably, with a tractor built in 1978, there's going to be something someday that comes up that I wasn't planning on. So you have to be mechanically inclined, because you know, you're not just going to have somebody come over and fix this tractor for you on a whim. And the great thing about these old tractors is everything was built for the farmer to pretty much just, all you need is a flathead screwdriver and a crescent wrench, you know, and you can pretty much fix this whole tractor by yourself. They made all the books, International Harvester, even though they haven't been in business for, since 1984. They've merged with a couple other companies since then, like Case, New Holland, and such. But you can still get parts. So this whole farm was built around 1840, and a lot of stuff was modified since it was built. And, you know, some things you can adapt to modern farming and some things you can't. So you got to be a carpenter too, an electrician, a plumber. You know, like I said, I put those lights in, and I've had to do a lot of stuff myself. I have had electricians come out, but I've had to fix a lot myself. So you better be able to ready to get your tool belt out and address some issues, because invariably, even with a new farm, you'll have something. So like this shed here behind me, the garage, which is the white part, was built
in the 19 teens for a locomobile, which was a steam-powered truck, and the farmer used it to deliver milk. So I can imagine how much and fun that was, firing up a steam engine to deliver his milk. But so the garage here actually is a real garage, but it's my workshop, and so to put my equipment I had to build on the back. So, you know, carpentry skills are always a plus. And with an 1840s house, there's always something going on in there. So we're always just, there's always something, you know. Even the plumbing, sometimes you find some plumbing that was put in 1965 and then you got a pipe burst in the middle of the night. And so what are you going to do? You go out and get your tool belt and your PEX tools and you fix it. And so I'm very thankful for this farm, actually, because it taught me a lot of things and gave me a lot of pride in my work and taught me a lot of things about myself that I didn't know I could do. So, you know, being a farmer, I keep telling you about these intrinsic rewards and these intangible rewards. You can't put your hand on it, but just fixing all this stuff and being at one with yourself and being self-reliant is just one thing that I didn't expect was going to happen. And so that reward is very gratifying to me. You know, a lot of people will say these farms stink. You know, when you clean out the chicken house after it's been sitting there festering all winter, well then sure, it probably does smell a little bit, but to be honest with you, you don't smell anything, and that to me is a sign you're doing something right. If you're not smelling caca everywhere you go, then, you know, the stuff is composting. I turn it with my tractor over there and we put it on the fields. So chemical fertilizers aren't something I heavily rely on. I do use a little bit just because I just need that extra jump on my hay fields, but for the most part, we're pretty much self-reliant on fertilizer. There's a manure spreader here. It was built in probably 1949 or 1950, and there's going to be somebody everywhere you go looking to sell you something. And I swear to gosh, every time I turn around, there's some newfangled project that I can't run my farm without. And I'd be a liar if I told you I didn't fall for some of it, because sure, I've bought some stuff and then wished I hadn't. And you gotta, it'll take you a little bit if you're not already, and I hope you are already a little bit frugal, because geez, it seems to me sometimes the only people that make money on small farms are the people selling the stuff to the small farms, because the profit margin's pretty narrow. But you know, like I said, we grow all our own stuff, so we feed ourselves and then we have a little bit left over. So I'm very grateful for the fact that, you know, our primary source of meat and some of the vegetables and a lot of the fruit are grown here by ourselves, and we don't have to rely on an outside source for that. And you know, my point is just basically, just because it's shiny and new doesn't mean you got to have it. This old stuff, you can find this stuff parked in fence rows all the time, and finding parts for it may be difficult. But this old manure spreader, my brother brought home, and he found another one, and he took two manure spreaders and made one good one, and then I got it from him and slapped a coat of paint on it, and this is what we use to spread manure. And it's only a 40 bushel spreader, so I got to make a lot of trips, but it works just great. We sold a lot of stuff initially at the end of our driveway in a roadside stand, and we did okay. We paid for our garden those few years and made a little bit left over, so that was always good. We never really made what I would say enough to live on, so being a homestead farmer, I think the mindset is that you raise enough for yourself with a little bit left over, but you're not gonna go buy a new truck or anything with it. So it's just something to realize that it's a way of life, you know, and I have no regrets about choosing this way of life. So one thing, you know, that I struggle with, because I always had a good job and made good money, but I've retired, and so I'm trying to learn like my parents did, who grew up during the Depression, to make do with what I have and really think carefully about buying things. And like I said, it's real easy sometimes just to go down to the feed store or the box store or the hardware store, etc., and just get that new thing instead of, you know, I got some old boards and I want to get new boards because I don't want to pound the nails out. So I wish somehow I'd learned that trait, or gotten that trait, you know, learned that from my parents, to be thrifty, and somehow, maybe it's my generation, I'm not sure, but I just wanted everything new and shiny. And you know, it's a challenge for me. Even I'm getting better. I'm grateful that my wife is more thrifty and frugal than I am. And you know, Joel Salatin, I watch a lot of Joel Salatin, and he's got a lot of good advice if you haven't watched or read any of his books. And he says whoever is the most frugal is the one who controls the checkbook. So it's taken me a long time, but I'm really starting to follow some of that advice myself. To make it as a small farm, that's pretty key. You got to be frugal, thrifty, make do with what you have, reduce, reuse, recycle, right? You know, it's funny, my dad, my grandfather actually, he was a dump tender back in the 70s when they used to burn the dump and everybody brought their stuff down. So I'd go down on Sundays with my dad, and I was just a little kid, and I'd go right down over the banking of garbage and go find toys and whatever else, and it didn't bother me any at the time to go paw through garbage and junk piles, and we'd always bring home stuff, and a lot of times it was good, you know. And as a kid, my grandfather would save toys for me, and so I'm digressing right now, but part of me longs for that time when I didn't get everything new and I just made do with what I had and got hand-me-downs. Being the youngest of 6, I got a lot of hand-me-downs, and I remember going to high school back in the 80s and wearing my brother's clothes from the 70s, and I looked like I just walked off Saturday Night Fever, and I was good-natured about it. My friends mostly kidded me, and the bullies sometimes would bother me, but that's just how it was when I grew up, and I had a lot of hand-me-downs, and I don't regret that. And my parents did what they could and gave me what they could, and I think that maybe what happened is I might have gotten a little spoiled when I got a job, and I just said, screw it, I'm buying everything new, you know, no more hand-me-downs. I'm grateful for my family, particularly my wife and my kids. They help me a lot here on the farm and do a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff I couldn't do by myself, so we've been able to have a fairly large, and when I say large, 11 cows may not be large to some, but it's a handful. So I say, a fairly decent sized operation here with all the birds and the sheep and everything else, and so I'm very grateful for that labor. And so I don't have any outside labor costs. I'm not paying people to help me cut wood. I'm not paying people to help me put in hay. We're just getting it done here as a family, and I'm really grateful for that. So, if you're starting out and thinking about having a homestead life, as I've said earlier, it's not a 9-to-5 job, and the unexpected is to be expected. And I just think you're gonna have to be cognizant of the fact that labor is a huge factor in any type of farm. A lot of the big farms have switched to robotic cow milking because they just can't find or can't afford the labor. It cuts in. So, when you are thinking about starting a homestead farm, you're gonna want to think about, who's gonna do all the work. If I don't make anything off it, that's great too. But at the end of my life, I can say to people when they ask me, did you do what you wanted to do? And I can say, yes, I did. I bought an old farm, I brought it back, I raised animals, I raised my kids, and I did everything the best I could. And I don't think at the end of my life that you can really do anything better than that. I did the best I could, I raised my kids the best I could, and everything that I wanted to do, I tried, and I either succeeded or I didn't, but at least I tried. Lucy, say hi. Are you a good cow, Lucy?